I use my head, yes. Thanks. Who said that down there? All right. What we're going to do is when we do the prayer and the pledge, maybe do it right down here. Our speakers are going to come around the steps here. We do have these steps here, but that looks a little daunting, especially coming up is easier, but last thing we need on video is somebody falling down the stairs. So if we could call the meeting to order, and if we could do the opening prayer, we got Kyle Long, president of Bridge Fork. And we'll use the mic just down there. That'd be great.
Hey, everybody. Running for County Council District 28. Father God, we just come to you right now, thanking you, first of all, for your provisions of how you watch over us, Lord. You're so good, and you protect us. Lord, I pray for protection for our military that's deployed. Lord, watch over our soldiers. Lord, give them safety and help them get home safely, Lord, as they protect us. And Lord, I want to pray your scripture back to you, Lord. I believe Proverbs 3:5-7. We need to trust in you with all of our heart and lean not on our own understanding. In all our ways acknowledge you, and you will direct our paths. Help us to be not wise in our own eyes, Lord, but fear you and flee from evil. And Lord, Romans 15:13 definitely says that may the God of hope fill us with all joy and peace as we trust in you, that we may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Lord, we need that in this party, and we need that in our elections, Lord. And I pray that you would help us with discernment to do the right thing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kyle. And just for everybody's information, we do have a couple people that are running. When we do the welcome, we will ask you to come up to the mic and introduce yourself. Next up will be the Pledge of Allegiance. John Ellers, president of Jennings Mill and Greenville County 17 candidate.
Hey, I asked Jeff for permission to speak for a second on this. It's one of the things, I've never led the Pledge of Allegiance, so I've been rehearsing it. And you don't want to mess that up. That's just one thing you don't want to mess up. But as I've been repeating it in my car or at home, it's sort of taken a life. It's come alive. And one thing I wanted to challenge everybody to kind of do that. Put yourself in that position if you had to lead the pledge and just repeat it, maybe 5 or 10 times to yourself, because it becomes something totally different. My cousin told me that Red Skelton does a whole thing on this. So I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not breaking any new ground here. But I'm telling you what I felt, as I repeated it over and over, rehearsing. And it's attempting, it starts off as your pledge allegiance to the flag and the country, the United States. And then it goes on to try to define what that is. And, one of the things I noted, it's not pledging allegiance to a democracy. It's a republic. And that's very important. Anyway, I hope I don't mess it up, but we're going to go ahead. But it was worth mentioning my experience, how it just come alive to me. Okay. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John. I actually have a good friend that does what's called the toast to the flag. And I should invite him to come do that, because I tell you, it is another part of that inspiration about the flag and the colors and the blood that was fought for that flag and all that stuff. So if some things we need to take a little more serious that we kind of miss sometimes. Next up, we've got the Republican Creed, Deborah Manning, EC for Poinsett, and she is the vice chairman for the Greenville County Planning Commission and doing one heck of a job for us. Thank goodness.
Wending my way through here.
You can come.
I'm taking the safety stairs, okay? Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody here. Once again, my name is Deborah Manning. I'm the vice chairman for the Greenville County Planning Commission. Proud to be here. And we are on our way. We have a major meeting that's coming up this Thursday. We're going to be talking about the Enabling Act and bringing the power back to the county and to the Planning Commission. Thank you. So it seems rather appropriate. Thank you very much. I've been asked to read the South Carolina Republican Creed. All righty. I do not choose to be a common man. It is my right to be uncommon. If I can seek opportunity, not security, I want to take the calculated risk to dream, to build, to fail, and to succeed. I refuse to barter incentive for dole. I prefer the challenges of life to guaranteed security, the thrill of fulfillment to the stale calm of utopia. I will not trade freedom for beneficence, nor my dignity for a handout. And I will never cower before any master save my God. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid, and to think and to act for myself, enjoy the benefit of my creations, and to face the whole world boldly and say, everybody, I am a free American. And in the immortal words of our beloved president, fight, fight, fight.
Just to make mention, what she's talking about is a very serious meeting they're having on Thursday to kind of bring back, some control, hopefully back to the people, here in Greenville County. Chairman Benton Blunt is going to be on Coffee and Politics. I'll mention later on May 1st. And that's why he wanted to wait till May 1st after this meeting so he could kind of explain some of the things that they're working on there. There's another thing that we'd like to bring to everybody's attention. A lot of you know Jo Jones. She's been very involved with us on the reorg side, the data side. She went with us up to the inauguration last year. She's been to CPAC and all kinds of events across the country. Very, very politically active that way. She came down with cancer a couple months ago, and it was a fast developing cancer, and she passed away. I guess last month, March 18th, if I'm not mistaken. So it's still kind of a blow to a lot of us. A lot of her friends, a lot of people in her precinct. I think it's Greenville 3. So, but we, Olga put this one quick minute and a half thing together, and we'd like to play it for you. I tell people two things about my job or our job involved in the Greenville County Republican Party is we get to, see a lot of people of true faith. And so that's really been part of my story or part, and coming to Christ and all of those types of things is just seeing people who are true believers and how they fight really do, but truly believe, not just wear it on their sleeve. But the second piece of that is you meet a lot of people and you hear a lot of pain. And you hear a lot of things that, I didn't hear when I just kind of lived in my own house, my own couch, and just kind of watched my TV shows and all that kind of stuff and didn't get involved and didn't know a lot of other people. But we hear a lot about that, and it's tough. It's also, there's good and there's bad to it. But Jo will be sorely missed. Her family's from out of town, and I think she's got her memorial will be in a couple of weeks. We'll post it out for folks that know her and would like to come. So thank you for that. Next up, welcome to our guest. Any veterans here, please raise your hand. Thank you for what you've done. think we're creating more veterans right now, some more war veterans. It's going to be quite interesting. If you are a candidate running for office on June 9th, or even not running on June 9th, welcome to come up and introduce yourself from the mic down there and let us know who you might be and if you're running for office.
I'll be first.
Sure. Speakers are included if you like to. you're more
David
than welcome.
Atchley, I'm running for U.S. Congress District 4, and I'll be talking a little bit later.
I'm Danny Ford II, and I'm running for Commissioner of Agriculture, and I'll be sharing with you guys in just a bit.
I'm Joe Deal. I'm running for District 17 County Council, and I need your help.
Kyle Long again, District 28, County Council.
Evening, I'm Paul Wickensirer. I'm running for re-election for South Carolina House, District 22.
Hi, I'm Alan Kellett. I'm running for Greenville County Council, District 28.
I'm John Ellers. I'm running for District 17 County Council.
Okay, we're going to do the meeting calendar real quick before we get to our speakers. This is our regular meeting schedule. We do coffee and politics from 11 to 1 at headquarters every Friday. As again, we'll have Chairman Blunt with us on May 1st. The second Tuesday of every month, our legislative committee under Frank Gunther gets together at headquarters. We do have our pro-life committee is doing some educational outreach. They're doing a monthly meeting at Denny's on the educational side. And we've got the schedule for them for May 11th, June 8th, and July 20th. But assisted suicide, it's in May, theology of the body in June, and mortality and ethics in July. What they do is you can come early, 5:30, eat at Denny's in the back room, and then the presentation will start at 6:30. We also have this Saturday, Sunday, the baseball game. Literally my favorite event of the season and the year. For $32, we do have a few extra tickets. I hope, Terry, maybe we have a few extra. But for $32, you get a ticket to the game and you get a buffet for an hour and a half, and we get to hear a couple of candidates speak in our own separate area, and then the candidates can go talk to our folks and they talk to the other 6,000 people there at the game. So it makes it kind of easy, fun event there. We are doing some meetup meetings across the county. Let some candidates come speak. The first one we're doing is technically it's like zone 1, but it's up in the northern part of the county. That'll be on Monday, April 27th at 6:30 at Tipsy Taco up there in Travelers Rest. And then we've got one on Monday, May the 4th. We're trying to find times where people are not having meetings, and it's tough, but Mondays seem to be the best time. But we've got one, the speakers will be announced. We're doing that down in Simpsonville at Carolina Fine Foods. And then we're to our speakers. I think I said 6:30. Up first is obviously everybody's hero here in the state. The man that literally needs no introduction. And when I say I don't like 95% of the candidates or elected officials, but there's 5%, he is the 5%.
I brought a book I could stand on because Jeff was sitting so tall up here. I thought, man, I might need that. Actually, it's a prop. I'm going to use it later. Man, it's nice to see everybody. I feel like I've been in a time chamber. I've been otherwise occupied, as they say. First we had COVID, then we came back. We had the kind of an odd election, the 22 year. And then I've been busy with the Senate for the last 3 years. It's all been. And I just haven't gotten out and around. And I can't tell you how nice it is to get away from that 4 blocks around the State House. There's a nice guy right there. There's some really nice people and good and honorable people down there. But the pervasive culture is just such that it is harder to live with every day. I thought I knew it all, and then I was, taught a lesson here the last 3 years that I didn't know half of it. But we changed all that by working hard. The state treasurer's office is an interesting place. It's not the kind of place you wake up every day and think about. I always think about myself as being like a shingle on a roof. As long as I'm not leaking, you don't care. And it works out pretty good for all of us, right? But we changed that by elections. We changed that by what y'all are doing. I think it's my first time speaking to y'all specifically. And it's an honor because I know you're working hard to organize. And that's what it's all about. At the treasurer's office, we are stacked full of good South Carolinians. We didn't go out of state to hire a bunch of people. We found the quality of employees that we need right there in state. And despite all that's happened in the last 3 years, they're all still there. They're all still working every day. And it's just a testament to what South Carolinians can put up with because they didn't sign on to that. I signed on to it. Every night, unlike what you might be told, we are in a very regulated business. Every day I get these reports. Last night, your staff managed $46.2 billion. $46.2 billion. We know where every penny of that is. We know where every cent of it is. If you can imagine all the people we deal with, from the FDIC to the Comptroller of the Currency, you can just go down the 3-letter list on a regular basis. We're well regulated. And that comes back again to my staff. And I just can't quit talking about them enough. I'm a smart enough guy, but I'm a politician. I can't handle a 500-page spreadsheet with pivot tables. It just is not ever going to happen. But we have people there who look like y'all who can do all of that. They manage the college savings program, which is $8.5 billion right now. It's fantastic. We started with $1 billion. And we've, if you ever want to save for college, that's the right way to go. The General Assembly did a great job when they gave us that program because you get to beat the tax man 3 times. And I love beating the tax man just once, and you get to beat him 3 times in that investment. So if you ever get a chance, use the 529 program, especially as it now allows you can pay K through 12 private school tuition. K through 12 private school tuition, as well as books and computers and things like that. We also run which is not as big a program because it's young, a newer program. But if you have anybody in your life that has a disability, if that disability came before the age of 46, you can join a program that's very much like the college savings program, which is a lot like an IRA. You put money in, it's tax advantaged, it grows tax free, and you take it out for a purpose that's approved, which is a lot, and that's tax free. So what does that have to do with disabilities? They can use it to go to college. They can use it to go to private school, but it's better than that. It's the only way that somebody who's got virtually, the only way that someone with a disability can save money without affecting their federal benefits. How many times have you heard somebody say, well, I had $2,500 in the bank and I was only allowed to have $2,000, so they took it all. That's what the federal government does. Now with this program, you get to do it. This is the kind of thing we do at the treasurer's office. So we're out selling that. Say you have a 14 or 15-year-old son who's got autism. Maybe he can't drive, or maybe he just wouldn't be driving at that age. To get him to the doctor, you have to take off of work, go pick him up, and get him to the doctor. Well, with this program, you could hire an Uber on a standing appointment, paying with that through these tax advantage dollars, and you get to stay at work while he's at the doctor. So these are the kind of programs we do run at the treasurer's office, and that Palmetto Able is a fairly neat program. If you get a chance to use it, do it. How many of you have checked your names at the state treasurer's unclaimed property program? Let me see your hands. Oh yeah. This is a joke that never lands, but I do it all the time, and my staff says don't do it. But it's because everybody who didn't raise their hand thinks you're too smart. You think I couldn't have lost any money. Let me tell you, boys and girls, you're wrong. We have $1 billion. That's with a B that belongs to y'all. One day, it's a Saturday a couple of years ago, rainy and couldn't get outside, couldn't do anything. So I started looking up everybody's name. Donald Trump. We had money for Donald Trump. Barack Obama. Barack Obama was owed money when he was the president of the United States. They couldn't find him at 1600 Pennsylvania. And it's a unionized postal service. And guess who was trying to find him? A hospital system. He had just given them the biggest Christmas present you could ever have, Obamacare. They're all making money, and then they can't find the man. So it follows him because they can't find him at his museum either. If you go look, I looked up Rush Limbaugh, I looked up Wilt Chamberlain. They all have money, except for y'all who didn't raise your hands because you're so smart. It's the favorite thing I love to do because it's like playing Santa Claus. As a politician, I get to give away money. Now, it's got to be your money, but still, it doesn't really matter. Some of the stories we've had, there was a lady from Greer, and I get involved with the interesting one, right? We have a staff of 16 or 18 people. We go around the country. We beat people over the head, like big insurance companies and big banks. Give us the money that you owe people in South Carolina. We do that in South Carolina, but we're a lot nicer. And then we get it, and then we put it online in a searchable database. So you get to go search that. Nobody ever does. They think they're too smart, right? Well, so like this lady in Laburnum Drive, Greer, I remember her whole name and everything, because once you start chasing somebody, you know all of them. You got to find them. You got to track them down. It is not easy with cell phones. They owned, this man and woman, they were in their 40s. They started a boutique textile business. Where's Jeff? Jeff, do you know what a boutique textile business is? Well, I was going to pick him out.
I don't know.
There you are. Nobody knows. I tell you, it's fancy tablecloths. They were making fancy tablecloths that were so good, they couldn't make enough of them. They had plants going around in Panama and Brazil and China, you name it. They were making money hands over fist. So they said, well, we don't have time for an accounting system. And they're both, college educated and all that. So they said, let's just put all the money under the bed every week. And then on Friday, we'll take it to the bank. Because if we stop to do that, we might lose $100,000. So it wasn't a bad plan, except he died unexpectedly. He's a runner, went out for a run, didn't come back. So she sold the business, made some money, got out of town, but we owed her $250,000. We couldn't find her anywhere. But it was kind of an interesting story. So they brought it to me, and I said, well, of course, I'll find them. I'm the boss. Just watch. Well, trick of there is I don't sleep well. 2:00 in the morning, I'm up. So I got to do something. Have you ever been to that website? What's the name of the website? It's not Gravestones or Us, but it's something like that. You can go look up people's gravestones. Yeah. Find a grave. Yeah, I got it. It's saved on my computer. Well, if you want to do something odd, go to Find a Grave and look up your own name. There's a guy in Chicago with my exact name, Curtis M. Loftis Jr., who's dead. I can look at his gravestone anytime I want. Well, I know. Isn't that weird? Well, anyway, so I went there. I found her mother-in-law, tracked her back to New Jersey, and I found her brother-in-law. I said, well, this is great. I called him Saturday afternoon. I called him. I said, hey, this is Curtis Loftis. I'm state treasurer down in South Carolina. I'm looking for Miss Scott. And he said, click. That's all right. Called him right back. Hey, we got hung up on, but we owe her some money. I'm not asking for information. I just wanted to go to our website. She can go to the state website. It'll all direct her there. So that's just what I'm trying to get done here. Do you know if she's there? And click. Well, I started to get aggravated about it, but then I realized he's like 500 miles away. What's he going to do? But then when I talked to him a few minutes later, I was kind of worried about it because he sounded like that longshoreman from the movies in the 50s that they got a heater, and they could set you for concrete shoes. Well, so I called him back one last time. I said, listen, give me 30 seconds and I'll never call you again. We owe, and I gave her name and I gave her address. We owe her $250,000. She doesn't have to call me. This is my cell number, or she can call the office. She can call the governor's office and they'll direct her over and she'll get her money. He says, I'll do that, but first I want you to know something. He says, I don't know you, I don't like you, and I don't trust you. He says, I think you're that Nigerian prince who follows me around the interstate. He said, and by the way, you have the worst fake Southern accent I've ever heard. So about 15 minutes later, I'll say her name. She doesn't live here. Deborah K. Scott. It's all public knowledge. You might have known her because it's Greenville County. Deborah K. Scott called. She's the nicest woman on the planet. So we told her about it. She said, oh, this is great, and I'm thinking, you got all that money. You don't really need it, but, you always want more. And then I made the pitch for campaign donation. So what happened next? So then we always go back. Once we know we've got contact, we go back and search elsewhere. We found about another $100,000 around the country. So she had $350,000. You're not likely to have 350, but the average person is 1 out of 4 people, and they have $700. You go stand in line and pay money for the lottery for worse odds. We have a family at Myrtle Beach, $1.5 million. They hadn't picked it up. We have a physics professor down at Citadel. I hounded him so much that I got a message back from the president's office. He knows, he knows, he knows. But I think some of that is family planning. You know, if you're 70 and your brother's 75, maybe you'll give them a year or two, you know, before you go claim that money. Because we always keep the money. So it is interesting and it's fun. You go to the Treasurer's website, make sure it's mine. It'll have my face on it. There are some other guys who will charge you. They're honest, but they'll just charge it. You don't need that. Look your name up. And while you're doing, look up other people. Look up your church. Look up your pastor. Look up your neighbors, your friends, and all that. The last story I'll tell about this, Dad was probably 90 at the time. Mom was 87 or 8. And somebody messed up and gave her a laptop. Or it was an iPad. And she always had a memory like an elephant. So she remembered everybody from the class of 47. That's important here for a minute. And she would look them up, and it was like that computer was just helping her get in touch with people that she already remembered. So Dad and I are going to the back. Daddy wanted to go out back for a cup of coffee on a 100-degree day. You know how that is. And I heard her say, Annie, this is Annie Mae Knox. I was in class with you in 1947. And my son has $500 for you down at the treasurer's office. And I looked at Daddy and said, get out of here. So we go out to the back porch. I said, well, I wanted to hear all that. That's interesting. I'm glad, Mom at 88 on her computer finding people. She's, we pay people for that. And he said, well, you just don't know a thing about women, do you? I said, what do you mean? He said, she just wanted her to know that her son was the state treasurer. But it is a lot of fun. And I promise you, if you go look, you may not find money for yourself, but you're going to find money for somebody. And it's a great call. You pick up the phone and you call them, and you hadn't talked to them for a while. Look for your parents and grandparents, even though they passed the estates. The estates are just, we can prove how bad estates are when they're settled because we have money all the time. And we had hundreds of millions of dollars of improperly settled states. So that's kind of what's happened in the treasurer's office. I'm really happy about it. I couldn't be more happy. State government has a lot of money. Jeff, where's my time? Well, I don't know. Don't tell a politician that. It's crazy. I'm going to read from my book. State government has lots of money. Now we're getting to the end of the cycle now, but for 3 or 4 years, they had lots of money. It's always surprising, and they're always surprised. What you learn when you've been there for a while, and we've got a firsthand observer over here. You can stand up and say, yeah, is that the left is there all the time. They're there because they're the association of nurses or whoever, whatever association is there, and there are hundreds of them. They're all left wing. All those non-for-profits. It used to be ours, they're all left wing now. And then the left wingers themselves, they show up. And it's amazing because we're just not there to compete. And so when the members of the General Assembly goes out to the lobby, who do they see? They see people who are making tons of money by relieving you of your money and get it into their pockets. So we just have to do better. I hadn't told the story in 30 years, but I told it just a few minutes ago. Somebody reminded me. Back in the 80s, I'd bought an old Volvo station wagon from the 70s because I needed something to haul a lawnmower and some tools and stuff to do some work on a remote piece of property. And the bumper sticker said, think globally, act locally. And that's what they did. They took over everything at the local level, especially across the country. Not so much here, but you'd be surprised when you really look at it. They've taken over everything. They started locally and they went. The other part of that story is the left always tells you what they want. And they do what they say they're going to do. Now, what do? We have, don't take this too personally, but we have the moral majority. They weren't the majority and they weren't moral. I mean, at the end of the day, look what happened. They told us, they changed the Republican Party such that if you were for guns and against abortion, that's all you had to do. And you could get elected. Well, there were a lot of people who said that. And a lot of them are still elected But those are the only two issues that are with us. And they're barely with us on those. So the right is always confused and the left isn't. Now, we've got somebody here who helped unconfuse things, but we still have a lot more to go. On the state level, we have all those boards and commissions. Last time I checked, there were 1,000 vacancies or overstays. Now think about that, 1,000. I will bet somebody every penny I have that if a Democrat governor was elected, those 1,000 would be filled in 6 months and they'd be kicking Republicans off the other ones. And we just don't organize. Now, some of the local counties, I can't speak to Greenville because I didn't check before I came, but some of the local counties have really started pushing the county boards. But the state boards, everybody wants to be on the Carolina or Clemson board or the Ports Authority. But you get down on in there, and there just aren't that many people that will reach out and take the job. There are all sorts of these boards and commissions. And because we don't, they do. Their people will stay on a board. We've had boards and commissions that one, the particularly big one, the Developmental Special Needs Board. Yeah, I've forgotten the name because they've changed it. But they didn't have a majority for a couple of years. We end up with Democrats running boards because there's so few people left. So we have Republican leadership, Republican population, and then out there and look at ETV, a perfect example. They're pumping in hundreds, if not thousands, of hours into every school, and they are as hardcore left wing at their administration as anybody. And so that's the kind of, we need y'all down there. You need to look at Mark Hammond's got this excellent site that'll show you where the vacancies are. If you've got a history, if you've got an interest in history, if you've got an interest in libraries, if you've got an interest in school, whatever it is, there's a board and commission out there. And it's probably got vacancies. Now, to get a Republican to take you seriously is a different item, a different matter altogether, but you can get it done. If you decide, I want to be on that board. There are boards for like cosmetology. I don't know much about that, as you can tell by this haircut, $15, and that's including tip. Thankfully, Buddy's just as cheap as I am. So Alan Wilson goes and gets his haircut there. What's he got to cut? Come on. And think about this. So I hear about him, my optometrist and I, he talks to Henry, the governor, about me, and then he talks to me about the governor. Same it is with our haircuts. We've got 4 or 5 politicians who go to see our buddy because we're all cheap. But we get people on the cosmetology board because that person may be 25 now, but by the time she's 35, she's on her own business. She's paying taxes and she wants to be on a bigger board. So that's the kind of thing we have to do. That's that leadership, mentoring, and training. So those are the kind of things we can do. And it starts here, like my old bumper sticker, think globally, act locally. So I'll finish up with a couple of things here. As you know, I've been through what we call the great unpleasantness. We did steal that from what genteel people used to say about the Civil War, but for me, it's about the same thing, so why not? The Senate's been chasing me. I can talk about the issue, but you don't go to sleep. It was so confused from the beginning. You can't really even separate the truth from the falsehoods and all that. So I kind of look at it different ways. I was going to jump. They got after me because they didn't like something. And they got rid of Richard Exum because that's what they didn't like, was Richard and the errors he made. But then they look at me and say, man, if we could get rid of him, we would have the accounting and the finance. We'd have the books and the money. And like I said, we had $46 billion last night. And if you want to monetize $46 billion, it ain't hard. So I've been doing this now too long. I thought I was going to be retired. Well, I thought I'd be retired a long time ago, but I can't leave the job undone. As long as they're chasing me, I got to say. So they got after me and they wanted the money. That's as simple as it is. Now, it didn't hurt that Grooms didn't like me because I beat the old treasurer and that was his friend and that kind of stuff. But they want control of the money. And what they really want is an appointed treasurer. I don't know what this, can I hear the noise? Yeah, I'm sorry, there's some kind of noise here. But anyway, so they want the money. Now, as a state treasurer, I can't take money from a lot of people. I think maybe Goldman Sachs or a big investment company can give me $250 if it comes from employees. I don't ask them, so I don't really know. But if you're the guy who makes the appointment, you can take all you want. And I've been doing this long enough to know if you have a son in some far-flung place in South Carolina, he can make $400,000 a year doing marketing for a large firm. Sight unseen, I can promise you that. If you want to take big long cruises in the summertime to Antarctica or wherever, that can be arranged. That's what it happens when you're surrounded by huge pools of money, because the fees, the accounting, the auditing, the actuarial, the broker fees, the trading fees, the custody fees, all of that stuff, they're huge. And people want your money. And that's why they want these jobs appointed. They don't want somebody who'll come out and talk to you. How many people know the appointed comptroller general's name? I don't think anybody does. We got somebody in the back. They have one person that knows. He's is a Democrat. The Senate made sure that he was a Democrat. They got to pay. Yeah, but I know the backstory. You know, the Senate wouldn't show up for the vote. So the Senate and House were trying to have a vote. That's what the Constitution says. Senate wouldn't show up, so the House couldn't do anything. So they waited till they left, and then a small group of people came and said, "This is who we want." And he was a known commodity, so that's how it happened. But it was not a good thing. All right, back to what I'm trying to say here. When nobody is under oath, but the defendant, if you will, you can't expect much. How many of you would go to, say, a court and you were accused for something, and the judge is not under oath, the jury is not under oath, the prosecutor's not under oath? You're the only one under oath. And that's the bottom line. Because not only are the senators not under oath, they have specific immunity from slander and libel. They can look at you and say, "You're a serial killer," and ain't a thing you can do about it. And so what we did was we tried to figure out how do we get through this? Well, I realized that after a while that there are a few organizations that people dislike more than the state Senate. What I was surprised is how few people know how few Republicans know who their state senators are, and then how few like them. And it was really funny because people tell me about their House members all the time. They all like their House members. So it was an interesting conundrum we got into, because here we are, we're getting the heck beat out of us here, but we find out that nobody cares. So what are we trying to do with it? It's going to be a little while before we can get started, but we're trying to make a couple things very evident. One, these hearings you see, even the ones in Congress, what do they ever accomplish besides making people mad and raising money? That's exactly right. And when you have immunity, you can say and do anything you want. People that have been around state government for a while will probably think this is a little bit odd, but not really when you think about it. When Senator Leatherman died, and Senator Leatherman was somebody I sparred with all the time, but I had immense respect for him. You know, I lost all the time. He beat me up all the time, but I knew the rules. Remember The Godfather? The Godfather had that, you got to play by the rules. Well, he had rules, and as long as you knew what the rules were, you could do it. When Senator Leatherman died, the rules went away in the Senate. They don't have rules. They don't care. And that's a hard thing for me to say, because I'm kind of I believe in institutions. I think we need to make sure that they're maintained and make sure they do what they're supposed to do. But they didn't care if we lost our credit rating. They didn't care what bad headlines went around the country. One of them said there was a mysterious bank account with $1.8 billion in it. There's not one word of that that's true. Not one word. A friend of mine who works for the Treasury in London called me, said, "Hey, I see what you've done. Can I go on a trip with you?" You can always count on your friends, right? But see, they didn't care. They knew what they wanted. They wanted me out of that job. They were willing to overturn a statewide election and not one of them sign an oath. Now, when I buy a car, I effectively sign an oath. When you're a jury at a magistrate's office, you sign an oath. Of course, judges and lawyers have signed on early on, and the judge has extra responsibilities. We didn't get any of that. We got hearing after hearing after hearing, and there was no due process. And they're proud of the fact there's no due process. So what we got to do is say, how does this not happen again? Because what were the real things that happened here? One, they made a game for the office. They didn't get it. But two, do you think the other people in my position, the other constitutional officers, weren't looking? You think the judges weren't looking because the judges are covered by the same law? The justices, the solicitors? Can you imagine if that committee calls in a Supreme Court justice and say, we don't like X? What are you going to do about it? Nothing. If you don't show up, you're in contempt. If the chairman says you lied, the law says he goes to the attorney general, and the attorney general will file the charges. There's no grand jury. There's no hearing. That one guy has that power. Everybody knows that. I've had state judges corner me. I've had solicitors. Everybody saw what happened. What they're doing is exercising power far beyond the Constitution. And they don't care who knows it because there's 46 of them and they just don't care. Now, I do have to be careful. There were 9 who voted with me, and I'm thankful for that. And it took a lot of courage because they got the hell beat out of them for voting with me. And so in the end, it's going to all work out all right because there were 2 tracks going on. There was over here politicians who refused to take oath. They refused. We asked them over and over to take the oath. They wouldn't do it. They made me swear in my reports, like a 400-page report. I had to swear in that it was truthful. They wouldn't swear to theirs. And then over here, you've got the SEC investigation. Well, guess what? Everybody swears in there. All the real information is going over here. And in the end, we'll marry the two. And you'll all see in the doubt, if there's any doubt, it'll go away. Some of you may have even seen, because now they've got a new track on me. They're talking about debt. I won't get too far in this because it gets complicated, right? Not that y'all couldn't understand it. It's just you got better things to do. A newspaper article wasn't bad, wasn't awful, but it was a precursor of what's to come. It's because we haven't settled these issues, we can't go out for the best kind of debt, which is called a general obligation, long-term debt. We issue bonds. So what we're having to do is go to the bank, and once a year I borrow about $300 million for some projects. And that's going to have to be done for a third year because we just can't get this information. So in that article, it said three people and said, well, I would sign it. I would sign those documents because the problem, I can't sign it. I have to sign a document. Almost everything I do, I have to sign a document that says, I swear that there are no material omissions or errors. Everything is truthful and everything's in the book. This is the book. This is one of our bond issues. Do you think any of those people have ever read these? I've read every page of them. And so it's difficult. So we can't go out to debt. We're the only state in the union, even though we're cash rich in a AAA state, we're the only state in the union that can't go out for long-term debt like we should. And it's because of the misbehavior of the state Senate. And they've clouded the water so much that our disclosures can't be made until we get all the information. And you'll never, I'll kind of stop at this last and see if there are any questions. But I can't get the information. They tell me it's all been fixed, but they won't give me the information. Now, you know what the penalty is if I say that it's all been fixed and I write in here, no errors, no omissions? I have to pay the state's penalty. The state can't pay me back. The state can't insure me. No state has ever been this stupid before, so nobody knows what the penalty would be. I mean, you just can't make it up. So nobody knows what it would be. So on city and county governments, there are a lot of fees out there where the treasurer has to pay 50 to 100 grand, that kind of thing. But again, our disclosures are so much larger. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I said, I can't sign this until you give me the information. And they say, well, We gave you information. It's like a child, you know. Yeah, here's a piece of paper. This will do it. So we're going to have to work through that, and it's going to play out. But I just wanted you to see this. This is real stuff. And every page in this, I suspect, you know, if I opened it up and started reading, it'd take about a paragraph before somebody said, what in the hell is he talking about? Because, I mean, it is the most arcane law and bond histories and accounting and stuff. So this is what we do at the Treasurer's Office. And this is regulated by the SEC. Everything I do is regulated. I've got two distinctions, two things that I can be proud of. One is that I'm the most regulated guy in South Carolina. And second is I'm the most investigated guy in South Carolina. And I think I'm more proud of this one because I've lived through 13 investigations now. And each one of them cost y'all millions. And they're going to start the 14th one just as soon as the OIG delivers his final report. And the 15th and 16th are already lined up for the subsequent years. And they're all looking at the same stuff because there's nothing else to look at. But this is what they do in Columbia. And so it's been a good ride. It hadn't been a great ride. Hadn't always been comfortable. And I had bought a house out in Colorado. I was going to retire. I wasn't going to move, but I was going to have a place I could go hang my head. I got a god kid living in it now, and I'll never get it back. And I'm going to be here for 4 years. So it's going to be an interesting time. But I'll tell you that it's not going to be easy. And y'all, this is being taped, so they'll see it. They see everything I do. You know, as soon as I post something on Facebook, it's shared like within 3 seconds by a private. You know, so they know all this. But we're going to fight them, and I'm hoping we can drive systemic change because you have to have something really bad happen, and then when you flip it over and show people what happened, maybe that's what change makes. And luckily, the Senate's not up this time. They're up in 2 years. So they'll have time for this to mature and we'll let them answer theirs. There's some good folks over there, but they lost their laws. Does anybody got any questions or anything before I leave you all alone? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a New Yorker living in Greenville, but I'm not your average Jane. I want to know how do the roads of South Carolina fall under your jurisdiction?
No. If they fell under my jurisdiction, that'd all be perfect.
Okay. All right. I got the wrong guy. I got the wrong guy.
You know what happened to the roads? It's not that the DOT now is bad. It's that for 30 years, the roads were just left. And you think you know how to build. Anybody here an engineer or been around road building? Yeah. You put your nose under that tent. I helped them with, we started doing a lot of their financing because before they had their engineers and some people help. Now we hooked them up. When they first got the gas tax, 7 or 8 years ago, they thought they were going to have to go out and borrow a couple $1 billion. We showed them how you didn't have to do that. So we've been able to work with them and do a lot of good work. They're paving more miles than they've ever paid. They've got good prices. I mean, it's great. The problem they have really is that one, there aren't enough contractors. And, and this goes back to I'll put my nose under a 10-year tent. It said we have to know how many contractors are going to be available in year 6, 7, and 8. We have to estimate with some clarity how many wacko left-wingers are going to sue us about too much rain or not enough rain, and the runoff in year 4, 5, and 6. I mean, how many rental trucks will there be for the petroleum haulers? It's really something. And then they've got to do that for like 10 or 20 big projects. So I don't want to be the guy who says there's not a problem because I have a pothole in my front yard and I'm very close friends with my house member and my county council member. And that pothole hasn't been fixed in 5 years. Yep. So maybe I'm not such close friends. But we have a systemic problem with the roads. We got too many roads in the state system. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything we as the citizens of South Carolina can do to change this systemic corruption and the people that have no accountability and don't have to take an oath? And thank you for you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Y'all are doing it because you're organizing. Yeah, I'm not speaking out of turn because I talked to Drew about this and others. We have got to organize. The left is 10 years, maybe 20 years ahead of us. They've taken over all of the mechanics and we're left out here by ourselves. I floated the issue some this year and I'm going to push it next year. I want to have the elections commission split in two. You got the mechanics of an election, but because of what the left did on the nationwide business, but taking over all the 501c3s that run the trade groups, they have voter participation in the same bucket. So everything they do here has to go through this lens of how do we get more people? Now, they're not at the country club registered voters. So it's all about marginalized folks and all. So it all bleeds together. So what you get is what you got in Georgia, what you got in Arizona, what you get in a lot of places. The whole thing tilts to the left, and they don't really mean for it to, the people doing it, but because of your responsibilities, that's what happens. So these are the kind of things when y'all organize on your level, when everybody here knows their House member and their senator and can call them on the phone, that's what matters, because the other side does that.
Thank you.
I want to thank y'all. It's always good to come to Greenville. My parents were from upper part of Spartanburg County, New Prospect and Inman. So I have red blood. I've red mud in my blood, you know. And you know, when you're a kid, your mom says, "Don't you get red mud on your shoes?" And you think, well, what's the difference? Red mud, black mud. Then you own a house. And then you know red mud is forever.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank y'all.
One of the biggest worries, and what Curtis was talking about, maybe a lot of people aren't aware of it, what the Senate tried to do to him last year. We broadcast live the 10 hours of what the Senate, led by Stephen Goldfinch and Larry Grooms. Larry Grooms is a state senator out of Berkeley County. Stephen Goldfinch is running for attorney general. And Stephen Goldfinch has even come out and said, oh, well, they made me do it. Wait a second. You need to do the right thing by the law. He's an attorney. And if that's what you're looking for in an attorney general, that's a problem, if you ask me. But we'll make that decision on June 9th. But I cannot say thank you enough for what Curtis Loftis is doing. He wanted to retire. You heard what he said. He bought him a place in Colorado, like to go out there. I'd like to live on a mountainside somewhere and not have to hear all this type of stuff. But like he said, we can't quit while they're still coming after him. We can't quit until we've won this fight. We have to continue to organize, get bigger, get better at what we're doing, get more efficient. We have to stop fighting amongst each other. How about that? How about that? Because once we stop fighting amongst each other, then we can start focusing on the left or the Republicans that the rhinos of the left that are in the Senate that were trying to go after Curtis Loftis, who has been about the people ever since I've been involved in this for too long. He's been about the people, and we cannot thank him enough for doing that. So with that being said, thank you, Treasurer Loftis. You know, and just to point out, nobody ran against the guy. The Senate came after him hard last year, and not a single, we were able to talk him into running for re-election again. If he'd run for governor, I think nobody would have run against him, you know, for governor. I always tease about that, but I'm serious about it. I think he could. I think he's the most popular elected official in this state. But you know, we got him for 4 more years, but nobody ran against him. That says a lot. So, but next up, we've got Paul Dans. He was a candidate for U.S. Senate. He's going to give us some update on what he filed to take his name off the ballot on Friday. It was the last day. He's an honorable man. I think he's trying to do the right thing, but we wanted him to still, I called him. I said, we still want you to come up, speak to the Greenville County Republican Party and let us know what you're doing and what you want to do next. So with no further ado, Paul Dans.
Well, good evening, Greenville. Great to be with you. You know, it's a tough moment to step aside in the race, but I'm reminded, you know, we're on our 250th anniversary here, and we stand on hollowed ground. You know, this is where patriots have lived and died and bled and suffered, all so we could live free. So, you know, it's about really a sacrifice at some point. And that's, you know, I stood up, I put my name from this race for the same reason I put my name forward in the first place. I want Lindsey Graham in retirement. Yeah. Look, you know, this to me, I'll tell you a little bit about myself so you understand where I'm coming from. But as a freedom fighter, as someone who's been in the movement, you know, a Trump guy from the jump, I've been working for America First policies for the last 12 years. I could not believe that we were just going to kind of let Lindsay get for a 5th term. And, you know, my expectation of it, my original take on the race was, you know, that people weren't coming forward of courage. Many of the better known people in South Carolina were not throwing their hats in the ring. But this is really what's in front of us now. And I have pulled my name because I do believe Mr. Lynch, Mark Lynch, has the resources to see this through. So it ultimately came down to a money issue. That's the reality of politics. But I believe we are ascendant, this group, freedom fighters, America First, and we need to kind of push one another over the line. So taking a cue from our forefathers, you know, whether it's Andrew Pickens or Francis Marion, Thomas Sumter, look, they weren't, the Patriots weren't firing at one another, right? And wasn't about to spend the next 10 weeks here tearing down Mr. Lynch so Lindsey Graham can make it past the finish line. So let me tell you briefly a little bit about myself, what I was proposing, what I'm going to continue to fight for in this state. So I'm not going to be a stranger. These are the same issues, and I'm assured that Mark is going to fight for them too as your next U.S. Senator. So I'm experiencing the same thing that Curtis did, but hey, I'm a dad of 5. I live in Charleston, a committed Christian. You know, I like to say that I am American by the grace of God and a South Carolinian by choice. So I came to this great, amen. This is, we are all blessed. And I was, of all things, blessed to find a Carolina girl. I contend best in the world. This is another serious point of disagreement between myself and Lindsey Graham. Look, I came here, like I say, for all the right reasons. A beautiful Southern girl, you know, very demanding at times, hard to say no to. And I'm not talking about my wife. I'm talking about my mother-in-law. So yeah, we came here for family about 2.5 kids ago. That's how I marked the time. It's about going on our 10th year. We were married down on Johns Island 20 years ago. I sometimes forget the date, but she put it in this ring. So we just were blessed with our 5th Philomena 3 weeks ago. So that was it. And my wife is a famous ballerina. Many of you may know. She went up and was recruited to New York City Ballet at 15, went to the School of American Ballet, danced for years, retired, went to Columbia University, went on to train Natalie Portman and Black Swan. So she is the face of what we call bar fitness worldwide, and we have a company that trains. So I had, she trained all these models and actresses in Hollywood, and then kind of like Trump says, I had a beautiful life before I went into politics, right? We came down here, but I was always a Trump guy from the jump. I like to say I'm a pure-blooded deplorable. I came from the same stock as you all, like the families that built this country, you know, did the dirty jobs, went off and fought the foreign wars. My grandfather was a merchant marine in World War II on the Murmansk Run, probably the most perilous at North Atlantic convoys, you know, in the engine room, the highest mortality rate. My uncles landed on D-Day. My dad was a Vietnam vet. So I had a lot of examples of, you know, what the definition of a man might be. And that was, you know, something I took when I saw, I was a K through 12 public school guy. I grew up in Maryland. My dad was, like I said, in the military. We moved around, but he ultimately was a professor of medicine at Johns Hopkins. I went off to MIT, undergrad and graduate school. And at this time, this is when they were starting the whole globalization and the deindustrialization of the United States. They started pulling our industries, right? My My grandfather was a textile mill foreman, all right? So he worked 3 shifts producing that material for the very guys who were fighting in the front, namely his sons. So this is the kind of the tradition I come from. And going and seeing, at the upper echelon of these educational institutions, them telling you, no, this globalization is ultimately a good thing. As long as the returns to capital land here in the US, we don't really have to worry about the labor. But the labor, these are the folks who built their entire lives around a factory, and it was kind of ripped out from underneath them. So what I saw happening in my own family, the machinists, my uncles and all, leaving their jobs, losing their jobs, the shipyards closing, ultimately my cousins going on drugs. This is a repeated thing. Today is still happening, folks. Georgetown Paper. This is a mill down in Georgetown, paper mill, 700 jobs gone this past year. So we're still continuing this deindustrialization. And this is what I was standing up to fight. I went on to make a wrong turn, went to law school. Lawyers, I have to say, Shakespeare might have been on to something about first kill all the lawyers. But sadly, our side is really underrepresented with conservative lawyers who know what they're doing. I went to the University of Virginia for law school and was the president of the Federalist Society twice. So I became a core constitutional conservative. And that's where I really kind of got my undergirding for the constitutional setting. I went up afterwards, like many of your family did, with a massive educational debt. I worked in the big firms, but there I clashed with very top progressive attorneys. And I worked on a famous case, Chevron Ecuador, for those of you who know it. But, we saved Chevron a little bit of $27 billion in that case. But on the other side of it were the progressives. They were Obama's law school buddies from Harvard Law School, and they were ends justify the means people. And that's the same gang that we're up against in Washington. So fast forward, I met Mary Helen, was really lucky to say, if we are blessed with kids, we're going to come and have them in God's country here in South Carolina. So along that time, I started working for President Trump in 2016. I volunteered in the war room in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. We brought over Pennsylvania to the win column. I thought I was going to go right into the admin, right? I had these fancy degrees and this great professional success. I realized that President Trump had no team behind him. And then I'm listening to Curtis talk about the fact that these boards and commissions, things aren't filled here in South Carolina. Well, the jobs weren't even filled in the federal government either. When the president goes to Washington, he only gets to appoint 4,000 people. There's 2.2 million federal workers. So you think you're going to make change when you get to Washington, you got another thing coming. There's a massive bureaucracy. And that's really the battle of our age, is getting this government back for us. And that's what I became. I became the chief swamp drainer. I went to work with Dr. Ben Carson at HUD, a great man, living legend. And, I learned early on, I guess I'll try to make this a little shorter than the first one, but hey, that guy's a tough act to follow. He is I'm going to look for my money. So my first day on the job, it's, July 2nd, I come in, or right after July 4th, I'm thinking, wow, we're going to do this. I'm a fancy lawyer. I didn't think I had to do my homework ahead of time and understand what the job was. So I go in there and I'm working at the Assistant Secretary for Community Planning and Development. That's where they push all these block grants out to communities. They come in after a disaster and long-term kind of thing, major grants. 10 o'clock meeting, my boss goes, he's the assistant secretary. There are 4 deputy assistant secretaries, 4 chairs set out. 3 of them are filled, 1's empty. And I'm just kind of an observer. I'm what they call a senior advisor. 10 minutes into the meeting, a lady comes in and takes the 4th chair, and she kind of turns sideways and crosses her arms and starts looking at the door. And the rest of the gang is just continuing to pace in the meeting. I'm like thinking, most social behavior I've ever seen. And so the meeting wraps, and I go to say, hey, I'm Paul, my first day on job. Hey, nice. And she bolts out the door. And I was like, well, what's with her? And they say, oh, Paul, let's back up here. We are appointed by the president, the three of us and our boss. She is a career civil servant. And so she's in reality, look, the civil servants cannot be hired or fired. We started that civil service 100 years ago, plus under the Pendleton Act, 10% of the jobs had those protections. Today, 99.7% of the jobs have those protections. 0.1% of the federal government gets measured as performing unsuccessfully. So, and in this case, this person had was an appointee under Obama and what they call burrowed in, that they had managed to somehow go from the appointed ranks into the competitive service and keep that job. So I said, well, what's going on here? What's she in charge of anyways? And they're like, homelessness for the entire United States. So I'm like, well, why don't we just put another appointee in place? And they're like, no, her job is what they call career reserved. Someone's made a decision that job is too important for the politicals. We can't have political interference in these kind of issues like homelessness. Every one of you has a position on homelessness. This is the essence of why we have elections to change policy. So I was like, well, why don't we unreserve it? Well, we have to go to the Office of Personnel Management. That's an HR function of the federal government. And so why don't we ask them? Well, it's called OPM. And they go, no, we can't ask them. We're afraid the answer is going to be no. They call it no PM for a reason. And I say, well, why would it be no PM? Don't they have people like us working there too? And in fact, the careers were running the HR function of the federal government. So basically, this is what's going on there. I managed, after President Trump got out from the second impeachment, I went to become White House liaison at OPM, later on chief of staff, and I basically just knocked heads. I started clearing things, completely systematically reworking the hiring function of the federal government. For me, it took me 9 months to get into the federal government. We shortened the hiring time to a week. And this is why, because careers decided they didn't want people like Paul Dans in there, right? I had the MIT and this and the problem solving and the law. And basically, we got 1,000 people in there and we started finally getting President Trump's agenda through. But the lessons from that is very few people go in the government who are headstrong, who have the savoir-faire, who have the problem solving ability, but also the legal acumen. So on our side, that's what I did. I saw the steal in real time. I was in the White House the night of the election in 2020. And, we were all saying, we are going to win this if they don't cheat it from us. I had been working, just to keep the lights on at OPM. Went down to Georgia, story for another day, but I saw the steal with my own eyes, right? Down in Buckhead. And that is what gave me kind of the gumption not to get angry, but to get even. I went to later work at the Heritage Foundation and stood up Project 2025. So you're looking at the chief architect of the whole thing. Thank you. So this is Project 2025 got maligned, but in reality, it really was the operating system of the deep state. We put it there in plain relief. And we said to ourselves, we will systematically create what the left does when they're out of power, is a plan that we can hit the ground running day one, when and if a conservative gets elected. And that's exactly what happened. I organized thousands of volunteers, hundreds of conservative groups came together. The lesson there was, for us to take power, we have to agree on the 60% and kind of bracket out the 40 or 30% we're disagreeing on. And to this, I think, President Trump came out gangbusters. The estimates put 80% of the work that he was doing was coming right from that. So I stood up here, based on the fact that I helped get government going again, got this ethos going, and then Lindsey Graham's going to be our senator. Are you kidding me? I couldn't stand in the sidelines. But, right now, remember, this is the number one job, June 9th. I'm sorry. And many of you may not, Mark Lynch wasn't your first choice. He wasn't my first choice either. I ran to be my first choice there. But I'm supporting him, right? This is bigger than all of us. This is the lesson. This is why I stepped aside, because patriots have stepped aside when they need to, because this country is bigger than any one of us. And when you start putting your shoulder, look, I have sacrificed so much for this movement. I spent the last 7 years kissing my wife and kids goodbye at 4 a.m. on Mondays, driving up to that swamp, either working for President Trump, bashing heads with the bureaucrats, solving the 2020 election steal down in Georgia, and then later on going up to Washington for Heritage. So you may not know me on the ground here in South Carolina, because Paul's been in the arena, in the foxhole up in Washington. And look, it's an honor to be in front of the grassroots patriots. And I commit to you tonight that I'm going nowhere. I'm going to be working for these very issues that I've supported. And I'm convinced that Mark is going to do the same. We have the shot to take out Lindsay. I mean, look, you know what he did in Pickens, booed for 7 minutes straight. I've gone around this state. Everyone feels the same. It's the rarity is when you run into one of these things. Everyone asks me, what's an actual Lindsey Graham supporter look like? There's a few out there, folks. But, the reality is this is ours for the taking. This is our Senate seat. It's ours. It's not mine. It's not any one of us, is ours, period. And we have to do this. So, look, support Mark. I've put out a platform that I'm going to continue working on and helping Mark do it. Briefly, I want us to thrive, right? The 21st century, and we're in a great place tonight. This should be all over the state, this sort of technical education, but we're going to put shop class back in the middle schools. Okay. Start working with your hands again. Many of us took wood shop, metal shop drafting, home ec, let the kids start functioning in 6th and 7th grade again. Go to advanced robotics, and start problem solving. I went to MIT, but I was in the IA Industrial Arts Club. This is how I developed my acumen. We're going to, and then, make tech education free. Like, let's have electricians, let's have plumbers, let's have robotics, medical technicians, and let's not make the kids go in the hawk. We can work with employers like here up in Greenville to basically do cooperative education. 2, I'm proposing, working with Mark, for a 21st Century Homesteading Act. This is to go back to the land, to re-support the family farm, right? We're going to have healthy farming again here in South Carolina, 150 acre spreads. Get these great farmers, these octogenarians. I meet them, these humble men who've been farming the land, basically breaking even, help them steward the land to a new generation. First order of business is I'm going to seize all this Chinese-owned farmland. And I'm going to encourage Mark and the rest of the senators to put in, look, you can't own farmland in China. Why do you get to own it here in South Carolina? There's 144,000 acres. That's like 225 square miles of essentially beneficially owned land by the Chinese Communist Party here in South Carolina. They own Smithfield Hams. They own all these kind of agricultural producers out of our food system. Okay. And what are we going to put in place? We're going to teach this next generation to do healthy farming. We're going to get rid of the glycophosphates. We're going to have community-based cooperative agriculture where the first stop is going to be your farm stand. And, you'll have raw milk. Look, and I'm going to beat my friend Danny Ford Jr. here to the punch because I stole this from one of his other speeches. It's my prerogative, but he hit me with this fact. Look, in 1970, there were 100,000 more head of cattle on our land in South Carolina. 100 million, rather. 100 million? All right. Oh, I'm talking about South Carolina. Yeah. So the point of it is that the population's gone up 5-fold and we have that fewer head of cattle. And look, I run into people, seniors, who are saying, "Oh, the Walmart went away. I don't know what I do." And they're on fixed income, and they say, "I hope we can afford meat again." Like buy ground. That is an outrage. This is the land of plenty, and we can't look. We will never eat the bugs. All right. Let's eat meat. So I'm promising through Mark an American steak on every plate. That's the promise. So community-based agriculture. And then finally, I think we need a nationwide national crime bill. We have to live in safety, security, get the money into local and state policing. If we have to bring in the National Guard to clear up Myrtle Beach or whatnot, look, we're going to take these areas back. We'll never live in fear. So that's the promise. I think we have great things ahead of us, South Carolina. We have to focus on the problem in front of us, though. And I say respectfully, maybe Mark isn't maybe there's some history. Put it aside, because anyone is going to be better than Lindsey Graham. And I say that with all love for President Trump. Look, there's never been somebody, I was known as ultra MAGA, one of the ultra loyalists, uber loyalists of President Trump. But, he, for all the greatness he has, I think he would tell you that he's picked some real beauties in the past. Whether some of these folks that have gotten these appointments have really done our side in. So this is about the future. This is about what happens next for America First. And I really commend y'all, because this is, I think, one of the top GOPs in the whole country. So it's an honor to come before you. Jeff and Olga were very generous when we first stepped out into this race. And one of the first people I told that I was going to pull my name, I pulled it because Friday was the last day to get off the ballot. But look, I'm going to be on the campaign trail for the next 60 days. And I encourage you all to do the same. We have to be active in this. And God bless you all. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul Dans. Like I said, Paul is trying to do the right and honorable thing in this race. I'm all about, if the mission is to get rid of Lindsey Graham, all guns should be fired at Lindsey Graham. We didn't need to go through the next 60 days with people fighting amongst each other and all those types of things. I believe the same thing getting rid of Drew McKissick. All guns need to be fired at Drew McKissick and not at each other. And I'll tell you, not this. Yeah, it is this weekend. Actually, this Saturday, there's a meeting with a bunch of America First folks around the state getting together in Columbia, actually renting the same location that Drew has his state executive committee meetings in to actually talk and plan about what to do in reorg 2027. So, but let me ask you a quick question. How many people are Clemson fans? How many people feel like you're a Maha guy or girl or lady? Maha, yeah. Healthy food. How many of you are crunchy Republicans and like our corn in front of the building? I am waiting for. I'm now on the I'm waiting for them to complain about the corn in front of our building, but we are going to have one heck of a corn boil, corn grilling in about 63 days. So, but who I want to introduce you to next is running for Commissioner of Agriculture. Who's ever heard of it? Who knows our current Commissioner of Agriculture? Back to kind of Curtis's question about who the current comptroller is that was appointed, actually a Democrat. It is an important job, especially in today's world. And what Paul made a comment about, I heard the first statistic, about from, I think it's early 70s, there were literally, I think there's like 80 million cattle today. There were like 180 in 1970. The population is, I'm a supply side guy. Why we should have more cattle here as opposed to worrying about what's going on down in Brazil or Argentina or something like that. But without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Danny Ford, who's running for South Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I want to start out with that question. How many knew that there was a Department of Agriculture head? Bunch of them? Oh, great. This is easy. This never happens. It's really, really, really hard to get people involved in agriculture. We have, as a society, moved away from what we have all grown up in and what we all know. Starting out, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up, obviously Danny Ford's son. I got to run all over the country and do amazing things. And then I turned about 13 years old, and my dad's position left, and we came back to South Carolina, and I got dumped out on the farm. And so my dad took me up the road to a veterinarian and dropped me off and said, I don't care what you do with him, working. I don't even care if you pay him. And I really enjoyed that. I got to grow up and learn a lot about animals. And I rodeoed growing up. I was competitive just like him. So that was a great, fun thing for me to be a part of. I was very proficient and one of the champions of our state in quite a few events, and went to the national finals, which not a lot of people know that we have a high school rodeo in South Carolina, and there's a lot of kids that participate in it. And I was lucky enough to go to the largest rodeo in the United States, which is the high school national finals. Not a lot of people know that there's a whole group of kids out there that make out the biggest agriculture event out there in the United States. And then I hit college, and there's not a college in this state that had a program for me, that had a rodeo team, that had something that I could participate in. So at that time, I had to look at it, and I had to pack my bags, and I had to go to Texas, Colorado, went a couple different places rodeoing at college. And I saw a lot of how other people do it in the United States. At that time, I really didn't understand that the way that we are doing it in South Carolina is incorrect and wrong. But now where we're at, I understand 100% that the way that we are handling agriculture in South Carolina is wrong. I have a 4-year-old kid and a 1-year-old, little boy and little girl. My 4-year-old looked at me a couple months ago and said, I want to be a farmer. Man, that's great, yeah. And I want to stop you there, because that's all the good news you hear. It's farmers committing suicide at 3.5 times the national average. More than our veterans, more than anybody out there. It used to be veterans that had the highest suicide. Now it's the people that make your food, that grow your food. And so last year we had the biggest environmental disaster that, in my opinion, has ever hit South Carolina, Hurricane Helene. And it washed all that silt off the top of that mountain straight into our waterways. Well, they had great programs, for all involved and everyone that got hurt. And, there was only one thing. Those stopped January 1st because that hurricane happened last year. Well, as soon as the heat came, as soon as the winter was over, you saw blue-green algae blooms, cyanobacteria, bloom in every single waterway we had. From May to November down in McCormick, the Department of Environmental was working almost in every lake in the state of South Carolina trying to contain it. I had 24 cows die from blue-green algae. I sat out there for about a month and a half and buried cows and pulled dead calves. And I reached out to my government. I reached out to everybody out there, reached out to the Department of Agriculture, reached out to USDA, reached out to the state vet. Everybody told me, you're doing the right things. Just keep doing what you're doing. I said, at what point in this event do you figure out that this is a serious enough situation to where you come put a quarantine pen at my place and figure out what's going on? Because at that time, we didn't even know that it was a water issue. They said, we're not going to do that. Sell your cows. Yeah, absolutely. And so they want to know why we're down 100 million cows. It's because we're not taking care of our farmers. I got a cell phone in my pocket. Dead, hammer dead. It's because I spend every day, all day with people in farming that are calling me and telling me exactly how they're failing. You have tractors cost $140,000 to buy. Well, when you put the parts in them, it costs you about $750,000 if you were just to buy the parts and build that cow. Every time you turn around, these companies are ripping our farmers off, and we're allowing it to happen. It is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I mean, I went up the other day to Anderson County where Duke Power's putting in a nice new gas plant over there. They want a tax break. I want off-peak hours as a farmer. Our chicken houses can't go and turn off their electricity to save money. We're not a family. We can't turn off our greenhouses. We can't turn off our water pivots. Can't turn off our cotton gins. We have got to stop watching out for major industry in the state of South Carolina and not our farmers. Ever since that point, I thought, this is something that the Fords have dealt with. This is something that everyone out there might encounter in the future, that they might have trouble too. So I need to run. I need to run for this position. That's what I thought when I started. Now, I know that every person out there in South Carolina is failing. Our loggers have had 13 mills in and around the state closed in the last 13 months. It's cut our logging operations in half. They can't get paid. If you go down to Johns Island, they just leave it sitting there. They have developments coming in every day, and this wood is byproducts for them. So if you try to go get a farmer and try to call someone and try to give you a price on your wood, that doesn't exist anymore down there. They can't sell it. Just like Mr. Dan was saying, they're gone. Well, why can't you haul it? Well, you can. You can. I talked to a logger the other day. He's burning 12,000 gallons a week. You know, last year that was $30,000. That's $60,000 a day. All of his profit is gone. It is only a matter of time before they go out of business. Why not export it? Why not export it to somebody else and let them handle it? Well, we've got a pretty good connection with Europe, and we can export Europe, but they won't take our preservative. We take that exact same preservative that they ship us, but they won't take that preservative from us. So I've looked at it all the way across the board. There's not one industry in South Carolina that is being treated fairly. Right now, the cows are high. They're real high. It's because there's 100 million slack. 100 million cows missing in the United States. The Mexico border shut down from the shorefly larva. We can't bring them over right now. Something we've always been able to do. And we've been able to feed those cows in our feedlots. But right now, in the state of South Carolina, we can't even get it USDA prime. If you're eating a USDA prime steak in a restaurant, that came from somewhere else. It didn't come from South Carolina. We don't have any graders in the state. So our farmers are at a $4 disadvantage from prime to choice just because we don't have anybody grading our food like that. They won't come in there and give us a grader. It's not that our cows are worse. It's not that we don't have the food program. It's that the infrastructure has never been set up in South Carolina for our farmers to succeed. Has to change. I look at these other people running, and they're talking about being CEOs and raising $500,000. I got dirt under my fingernails because I was in the hayfield before I came here. I know exactly what we need in South Carolina. And we need to bring the infrastructure to our farmers, and we need to stop shipping it out west to the 4 big packers. Because I heard y'all talking about roads before. You want to know the truth of the matter? Your roads aren't tore up because you all been driving on them. It's because we've been sending 80,000 pound loads down the road for the last 30 years. Everyone in this room has some tie to farming. They had their own. They had an uncle. Got in trouble on the weekend, drinking beer, had to go work and sweat it out and get in trouble. I was a benefit of that program. You know, I didn't mean the drinking, but I was a strong-willed kid. And I got dropped off on the farm, and it was very, very, very good for me. And that is what I want to get back to in South Carolina. That's what I want to see come around again. If you go look, there's no kids on the farm. If you go access the shrimpers, there's no kids coming in shrimping. The loggers, the same way. This generation has tied to farming, and the next generation does not. It is our duty, it is our responsibility through what we have learned in our lifetime to go out there and educate the younger people to come together in a cohesion of the community and work with these farmers. How do we fix it? We put the infrastructure there. We saturate South Carolina with South Carolina grown product, and we move out from there. We don't take that chicken in the chicken house that gets brought in from Georgia and send it back over to Georgia so they can process it there and get the tax revenue. That's why all their roads are so nice. That's why when you go somewhere else, they're nice, because they are getting the work off the farmers' backs. Right now, with $6 of gas, diesel fuel, I can't tell you how many farmers are quitting. I mean, every single day. Just like the logger spending $60,000 in diesel fuel, I know a buddy of mine right down the road went and filled his combine up the other day. It cost him $840 just to fill a combine. Why do he do it now? He's not stupid. He knows what's going to happen. It's not going to go down real quick. It's either going to go up or stay the same. And so he went and filled it up a month ago. We don't cut grain until November. We are happy to think about all of our people in South Carolina a year ahead of time. We're good at it. We plan on it. What we aren't is marketers. And that's why we need somebody in this seat that can pull it together and give us the systems that we need to provide for y'all. The first thing I'm going to do if I get in office is there's an app out there that shows you every roadside stand and market in the state of South Carolina. All right. That's great. It's a great start. But we are done speculating. We need money coming through the door now. Every year, January 1st, we go out there. What can we plant and not lose money? Usually it's one thing that ends up sinking us through that year. Weather, this, that, fuel prices, tariffs, it doesn't matter what comes that we didn't plan for. It affects us. I want to have that application to where our producers can list live inventories and our consumers can list their wants. So we finally, as farmers, know exactly what our community is looking for us to produce for you. I think that is huge. I want my kid and the next generation to have every opportunity that I had growing up, to be able to go out on some land and enjoy it. Right now, they're battling the data industry, 12,000 acres of solar panels that was just put in down in Kingstree, or at least zoned for, maybe 4,300 put in. But if they zone for it, they will put it in there. That is land that our kids will never get to farm again. There's no doubt. We cannot give them the fight that we couldn't handle. That's not fair. That's not how our farmers were raised. That's not what we want to do for the next generation. We want them to have less of a fight, less of a hill to climb. You know, right now, the average age of the farmer is 60 years old. You know what's even sadder? Age 35 and under is only 9% of our industry. 9. We're on the clock right now. We have 10 years to get the information, especially if I don't get in there, to get the information from this 60-year-old group to this 35 and under, because they don't know how to navigate this. They don't understand that you got to sell a cow on the hoof, that the consumer has to own it as an actual cow before it gets killed. Do you know how terrible that is for a farmer to go try to sell cows to somebody that doesn't buy cows that are live, that wants a steak? Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard? We have got to give our farmers what they need to produce for South Carolina. All these chicken houses in South Carolina that you see, They're either Amick Farms, they're either JBS, they're one of the big fours. All they do is a contracted work labor and rent the building. That JBS brings the chickens in, tells them how to grow them, and tells them exactly when that chicken's going to get on a truck and go to a process facility that is not in the state of South Carolina. We have to come together and give the chicken farmers exactly what they need. What do they need? Well, first they need off-peak rates because they're paying $30,000 an acre. I mean, $30,000 a bit light bill a month is what they're telling me. Then next, they're paying insurance. Can't afford that either. Had a guy call me from the lower part of the state, said, we can't hire nobody. The only choice we have is H2A. And I said, so you've had people come in and you've interviewed them and everything? Oh, yeah. Guy come in last week. First thing he did, sat down and said he wanted $80,000. And I said, okay. And he said, you got an insurance program? No. Half of your farmers do not have insurance out there, health insurance, whether you think they do or not. I know a good many of them. None of them. I mean, that's the first thing that they let drop is their health. They stand up and try to produce for you. But I told them, I had a fundraiser the other night, and I told them there, I always respected my dad getting up in front of the crowd and thanking the lunch ladies, thanking the dormitory people, thanking the trainers that kept them safe and healthy. Our troops still rely on the food that we produce. If we ever get in any kind of situation, you're not going to get the meat from Argentina. You're not going to get it from other places. It's going to get cut off. They're going to need us to produce. And so our food is 100% a matter of national security. I'm gonna leave y'all with that. I think I got the point across. We're in trouble. We need y'all's help. You know, I need every person out here to get out there and talk about it. You heard Mr. Dan say that he got a couple figures from me. I don't care what you get from me. They're giving it to me. All these farmers are. The goal is to get it out there and to save it for the next generation. So I hope y'all will think about me and vote for me during June 9th. Thank y'all so much.
Danny Ford, Commissioner of Agriculture. Food is a big deal. I just came down with colon cancer. No history of it. It's because whatever the heck I've been putting in my mouth and through my stomach and through my intestines is not food anymore. You know, I mean, we talk about it, but we got to find a way to sit there and save our farmers and put them back out front. So. Next up, we went statewide. Now we're down to the 4th Congressional District. David Atchley, he actually has a Clemson connection as well. I'll let him tell you. But he's running for the 4th Congressional District. And without further ado, I'll introduce Mr. Atchley.
Yes, that Clemson connection right over here goes back to the early 80s. My father was president, and your father was the head coach. Great era, great outcomes. Go Tigers. I want to talk a little bit about my why, and I've heard a lot about farming, and I'm going to talk about that because my early beginnings were on a farm. I was raised by the Limbaugh family. Rush Limbaugh was my mom's cousin. And back in the day, I would go out to our family farm in southeast Missouri and work in the fields and learn the value of hard work. And everything that has been talked about agriculture is true. And we still have that family farm today. We farm it. We have wheat, corn, and soybeans. We have tenant farmers. This year alone, and we have lost 2 out of our 4 farmers. And those are 100-year-old farmers. You don't replace that. And furthermore, I talked to my cousin Jim Limbaugh, who is with Montgomery Bank, and he educated me that in the Midwest alone, there's over 250,000 acres of farmland in receivership. Do you know who's going to buy that? China. And we have no regulations in DC to prohibit that. And that's a shame because we're giving up our heartland, which is what this country was built on, was farming. And we cannot allow that to happen. So farming is one of my priorities as I run for Congress. There's got to be a lot done at a federal level as well as a state level, and it is a priority. I also grew up, as I said earlier, as a son of a president of 3 universities, but the whole part of growing up under his leadership was what I learned of integrity, showing up and doing what you say you're going to do does matter. And that is a big part of who I am and what I've done. Now, my real why and why I'm running for Congress, I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer. Believe it or not, I'm a business guy. I've spent 45 years, building businesses. In my first business was in the law enforcement space, building systems for 911. And serving the community of law enforcement has to be a priority. Those people put their lives on the line every day for our safety. And we need to continue to invest in that and have safe communities. I did that for 13 years, sold that business to Motorola, and then I entered the higher educational form at Wofford Presbyterian and Mary Baldwin College in Virginia. And I was their chief development officer, but I learned the value of raising money for impact. For students that were deserving, that didn't have a chance to go to college, raising endowment, building schools and universities is important. The education of our America, higher ed and K through 12, is the lifeblood of our future, for sure. So we need to continue to invest in that. Over the last, I would say, 13 years, I've been able to work my own consulting businesses with brands like Clemson University and the NIL. Buzz Aldrin, who, let me tell you a little story about Buzz Aldrin. He did not. I ran his foundation for 7 years, and he never called me by my name, but he called me by outcome. He said, "Good that you did that. What's next? Failure is not an option." He said, "Determination every day matters. Never give up and go after it every day with vigor." So ultimately, why am I running? I had the last experience when I was in high school to work with Strom Thurmond. Great patriot here in South Carolina, 60 years in service. But I was a Senate floor page back in the early 80s. And he called me into his office and said, "Son, in your lifetime, you got to promise me you run for some kind of public service. That could be school board, that could be city council, but you're living and working in DC at the highest level. And I would expect for you to come back and serve your constituents or run for office in public service in DC." So that's why I'm running for U.S. Congress. I spent 45 years building experience. I am not a career politician. So some of the things that I stand for that I think can be done here locally, district first. Show up, listen, be present, bring solutions to the people that elect you, number one. And I have done that all my life. and being a community builder for the betterment of this great district. And District 4 is the best district in the country, and we should treat it that way without question. Some things that you can do in DC, which, nothing's easy in DC for sure. But, the simple, if people know what an MSA is, and that's a market service area. Sports, we see them as like who follows the Panthers or whatever, but we have them in DC. And currently, the MSAs are Spartanburg, Union, and Cherokee County. That's one MSA. And there's Greenville, Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens. Well, last time I checked, Spartanburg and Greenville in my district are one. If you've been on 85, you can attest to that. By bringing that together will allow us two big things: more federal dollars for infrastructure, and we would be the size of a Salt Lake City, Utah. So that's number 18 in the country if we combine those. We need to bring more dollars for infrastructure because the growth is not going to change here. It's coming, but we have to right size it for the right purposes. And you have to invest in roads for sure. You have to invest in water and sewer, but you also have to invest in education. A lot of things I learned on this campaign trail, we have the best tech schools in South Carolina. We have to continue to invest in those professions as industry moves here and have the ready-made workforce for them. The other thing that we need to do in the district is to invest in who we recruit economically here to the district. We just don't want it to grow because people want to live here. We want to right size the right industry here. And that's one thing I can do. I have sat and built businesses, and sitting there and recruiting the right business to move to Greenville, have the right paying jobs that are going to keep the Clemson graduates here, the Wofford graduates here, and the PC graduates here because they went to school here, is important. And right now we stand on the edge where they are at the crossroads actually leaving. And most of them, Wofford and Clemson, don't stay here because you can't pay what they demand as far as salaries. We have to do that. We have to bring in the right industry here to keep them here because it's a great, great district. Artificial intelligence, that hadn't been brought up tonight. I think it's a big topic and it's a great tool. And I know a lot of us use it daily. And, it can produce some amazing things and it's going to redeploy our workforce. But in DC, we have to put the right boundaries around it. It can be misused in many ways. If you saw the 60 Minutes art segment on AI, it took robots and married them with AI. Not only are they training to do what we do daily, they're also training emotion. The way that can be misused in this society is key. And we have to put some strict boundaries around it right now. I will say this, and AI is here to stay. And we've had a lot of evolutions over our history of our country, industrial and the internet. This is the next evolution, and we do have to win that, but we have to win it in the right way. And I'm here that DC's got to play a very big part of that. Some other things, term limits, that's a big thing that people believe in, and I do believe in term limits. And, for me, and I'm all about 6 years, 3 terms at 2 terms is the right size for term limits. But you got to provide the leadership to pass it on to whoever's the next great leader. And I'm determined to come in and work in DC and the district in order to provide solutions that are in the best interest of our district, not DC, for sure. But ultimately, it is our job to turn people out, right? You know, we show up on June 9th, not June 10th, June 9th, and you make your choice. And as we all know, June 10th, whoever wins the Republican primary is going to win the general election. So I'm here to give you a choice in who can make a difference. I work hard, I show up every day, and I am here to serve you. It all begins with listening. You cannot do anything in DC without understanding the issues locally to bring to Washington. And that's what I'm committed to do. And on June 9th, show up, which I know this group does for sure. Tell people to show up. That is another important thing. Remind them on June 8th, tomorrow is the most important day of our district and our state that we ever have. And, you know, this is a great organization. Get involved. Bring a friend. It is important for people like you to stay active and stay involved. But thank you very much. And God bless America.
He's stealing my presentation from later about getting active in your precinct, but we'll talk more about that. We're going to do the business meeting now. That was our 4 candidates. We appreciate them coming out and speaking to you. It is election time, so we've got a bunch of that stuff. First up will be the credentialing report from Joe McLaughlin. You're welcome to use that mic down there if that's easy. I wouldn't want to check. I don't want to touch those stairs either.
Okay, folks, we got 64 credentialed precincts for tonight. 64. Thank you.
Okay, next up is the agenda. We've emailed that out. If anybody has any issues with the agenda, we have not heard. I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Name and precinct.
Steve Hudson, Piedmont.
Second, Diana Weir, Ward 3, EC.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye, the ayes have it. Next up is Mary Wheeler and the Treasurer's Report. Hopefully this will be an easy one too. Miss Wheeler. Mary Wheeler. And I will sneak ahead and tell her, or sneak ahead and tell her a little story. What she's probably going to ask or point out is, since we're not at the library, we can pass the bucket and raise money. So it's fantastic. But these reports, realize these are all online. We're the only people out there that put them online that I'm aware of. But go to greenvillegop.com/reports and you'll see all the treasurer's reports.
I don't think anybody wanted to hear this anyway. All I have to say is I don't want to hold it. I am absolutely crushed that Paul Dans has bowed out. And the reason being for funding. That everybody, I don't know anybody, like he said, who's a Lindsey Graham fan. And we can't get funding to this guy. And there's a possibility we're going to get stuck with Lindsey again. And I'm like literally speechless. I don't even know where to go from here when we're killing ourselves and guys like that are bowing out for Mark Lynch. I'm moving on. So our beginning balance on hand, $7,482.41. General donations, $20. Membership dues through Anadot were $520.40. In checks was $50. We got some fundraising money from the Greenville Drive game. Anybody who doesn't know, Next Sunday, I believe it is, the Greenville Drive, we're having like a picnic, and I believe there will be more candidates there. You can go on greenvillegop.com and see about that. We took an income of $537. We got more funding for the people who attended the Spartanburg Gala, another $400. So I think we paid $1,000 for the table and we took back $800. I think we bought a lot of goodwill going to Spartanburg Gala. They came to, and shared our Christmas with us. So, and we got almost all of that money back from the people who attended. So I think there was a lot of goodwill bought there. Exactly. Total income, $1,527.40. Our expenses, rent and utility was $1,450. Outreach efforts, $170.38. Office and printing costs, $133.50. The website hosting, which is monthly, $35.35. Total expenses, $1,789.23. And our ending balance on hand, $7,220.58. Not a good thing. Our expenses are a little more than our income. I will be passing the baskets. I know how popular that makes me, but I'm going to just pass the baskets. If you can just pass them, and anything that you can do for us, I would appreciate it. I do want to say a special thank you to Jeff and Olga, and of course, our fantastic Terry Wicker. Jeff and Olga have been pursuing this venue for a year and a half and could not get a response, not by email, not by phone. And then I think something changed at the top and we were getting responses. And we originally were told we had to pay for this venue. And then we were told that it was free. We can book this venue for the rest of the year. There's no caveats on how far in advance, and it's always going to be free. So, and that's thanks to Jeff and Olga, and of course, Terry for following up on all the paperwork and all the wonderful things. So that's it. I'm gonna hand this over. You can put it back.
All right, thank you. There's no vote on the treasurer's report. That's just presented for the body's pleasure. The next is the meeting minutes. If you'd like to present, or you want me to present? Okay, we presented the minutes, we've emailed them out. Obviously, go and look on greenvillegop.com/minutes. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about the minutes? We had two set of meeting minutes, the January 12th regular meeting, which we had at the library downtown, and then the February 23rd special meeting where we elected our new first vice chair, which I'm not sure if he's here today. Okay, if we don't have any questions on the minutes, we'll take a motion to approve the January 12th meeting minutes. Motion to approve was from who? Jim Wicks, Ashton Lakes, and seconded by? Say it. Steve Bohm, Gallinsville Precinct. All right, all in favor of the June 12th minutes, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. February 23rd, can we get a motion for the February 23rd minutes? Probably could have done this together. Dylan Peters, Wadehampton Precinct.
Daniel Gamble, Allison Precinct.
Daniel Gamble, Donaldson Precinct. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you for making that easier. I will now hand it over to our state EC, Yvonne Julian, for her report.
I gotta stay down here like Joe. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Hi. Well, first of all, there you go. Is that better? Okay. Well, there we go. Okay. Okay, perfect. Well, you guys, so first of all, too bad Curtis is gone. Our treasurer's gone. But I want to say that he got a $15 haircut and included a tip, but he has to pay tax on that tip because of our legislature. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so the good news, guys, is that nothing that at the meeting that we didn't talk about anything that changes anything that you're doing. It's still full steam ahead on, first of all, educating voters and turnout for the primaries. That's what matters. Our meetings are kind of interesting because we don't a lot of times talk about specific county stuff, because it really is the purpose of that group is to manage the entire state. So we don't get into county stuff or county issues unless there's somebody creates a problem. So most of it's pretty generic, but a reminder of the purpose is according to the rules, so it's Rule 7C, it's the management, the number one function of that group is to manage the election for the state. So if you go to the next slide, that's the rule. So if you go to the next one, that's the standing agenda that we do. It's very much like what we do here. You have a standard agenda, and most of that does not change. It's just informational that primarily impacts what they're doing. So you go to the next slide, and this is the one that's important. This is their chairman's report. There was some interesting data that came out of this. The big concern is about people moving into the state. According to their data, 62% of those people are Republicans. So, but that's Republicans with, air quotes, because, who knows what that means, given our legislature, which I haven't fact checked this, but somebody told me that there were no Democrats that voted against the budget. So when you have a bunch of Republicans that are putting together legislature that no Democrats oppose, you have a problem. So, but again, I have not fact checked that. That's just rumor. But anyway, so the big deal that they're focused on from the SCGOP is kind of holding on to what we have. So he says that we've got 62% of the officials are a Republican in the state. There's not a lot of pickups chances, but I know that our national committeeman Tyson, there's a very far left wing woman named Heather Bauer. He'd like to take her out. So he's working to do that. And he thinks the demographics, again, with the demographics being kind of in our favor. So next topic that they talk about a lot is money. That is the mother's milk of politics. I think Mary just made the point about, Paul Dans having to leave. And I don't know how many of you got this from our lovely RNC. It's the invitation to the Palm Beach event, if you send a big chunk of money. But the reality is, as much as a lot of us talk about we don't like money in politics, it's a reality, and the RNC is actually in very, very good shape this year. I don't know if you followed the story about Act Blue, but there was some very good data about, the fundraising for the Democrats compared to the Republicans in that report about all the foreign money coming into Act Blue. So the RNC is in good shape. Their big concern is messaging. And if you get to the next slide, we'll see what they're the other issues they have. So they did hire some new people, 2 new people, actually a full-time fundraiser person and also a communications person. The other thing that's not on the slides that they talked about was also the fact that they used to send us this new movers report. I think it was, a couple of years, it probably have been over a year since I sent one to Tommy. They are not supposedly going to send that anymore. They're going to follow up on the data themselves and make sure that people get registered, because they said there was not enough discipline at the county party level. So, so the legislative items, H30 557, again, is not something we have to do anything about. That's a bill to basically change the filing dates and the filing collection. Okay, so with that, but those were the two, when they talk about legislative agenda, those are the 2 things that they were talked about. The next one was the closed primaries bill. So the story is that, the legislature, which had their version, the conservative legislatures had a version of the bill that nobody saw until, it was presented. There's also one from the state party. So of course that was a clash there. The story is that Chairman McKissick said he actually did meet with one of the legislators to talk about this. They had an agreement about what was going to be on the bill. When it got back, that was not there. So, long story short, the thing is dead again. So we go on to the next slide. Go forward. Go to the next one. Yeah. So these are now staff and committee reports. So they were talking a lot about their gubernatorial debates. We can all go on Facebook and see the schedule. So not a lot of information there, nothing we need to do anything about unless you want to attend the debates. The other interesting thing was the National Committeeman report. So you guys have probably heard rumors that there may be another convention, just like the presidential era, convention, there may be another one. So they did vote on that. There's also a very important vote that Florida and Iowa supported South Carolina maintaining first in the South status. So the RNC is just like a big state committee. So that's important. So those votes were important. So we got that. There's still a final vote that has to take place, but that has not happened yet. But also the other thing is that they want to focus on voter registration. They're trying to move districts where they have the opportunity to red. So we had a big mess with the resolutions committee. I think I know Becky and Spartanburg, they sent resolutions to the committee. They never, you don't hear any response. We asked the question in the committees, why don't they respond? The committee chairman told me that he was not a secretary. He was an unpaid employee. I was like, join the crowd. So is everybody else. So they don't send any feedback out. So you send resolution, they don't send any feedback. There was a big issue about their process. And then there was actually a motion made to kind of have members who were not members of the committee to participate through Zoom calls. Nobody knew that motion kind of came out of the air too. But anyway, so we met that got voted down. I voted against it because none of the committee members wanted. And I said, I'm not going to sit on that committee. I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to bust whatever they're doing. So that was that. If you go to the next slide, Rules Committee, this was a real tough one. I think the biggest learning I've had on that group is that not every county is like Dorchester, is like Greenville, Charleston, or Horry. Most of the counties in the state, they don't have rules. So there's only like a handful of groups that have rules. They also are very rural, so they have a very different set of issues and problems. So this is around really a big problem about who they can have as proxies at their meetings. And part of it's because it's a very rural county. They don't have enough people, so people don't show up. So apparently somebody busted them for having people that were not qualified to filling in as proxies. So it's an issue we're trying to help Barry fight, to try to understand, what the background of it is. And again, it's a big problem. So that was the one, I think that was the most substantive thing that really came out of the meeting from my standpoint. So that's something I think we're working with Barry to still fight. So we go to the next one. So these are again, I think this okay, so this is a treasurer's report. So there's two different types of money into the SCGOP. There's the money that is for operations. So that's for salaries and things like that. There's the other kind of money that we can't see because that's really, it's really candidate money. So, but you can see if you want to go to the, just go to the, Federal Election Committee website. I think I showed that last meeting. You can just go and see where they spent money. So that's not a big deal. But the candidate piece it's very fuzzy. So we don't have much information on that. So they've got 7.5 employees and total budget is 1.8 million. So I think that's it. And be mad at the legislature because I'm really mad about that. No tax on tips and no tax on overtime thing. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, there was the two motions that she mentioned. There was actually one that they put up to treat all of the ECs and chairmen equally that passed unanimously. Because strangely enough, I had texted a few other people around the state saying, "Oh, did you get these emails about the training?" Well, I thought I was kind of joking. I was like, I'm the only person that didn't get it. The other people started saying, I didn't get that either. I didn't get that either. Turns out it was about 17 of us that did not. So it's not just Jeff Davis. And so they put that up, but I've been subsequently told that since then, some people are still not getting the emails, but that's just, that's what the game that's going on down there in Columbia. What someone asked us to do, everybody, this is the girl that was murdered and we just take a moment for this, that was murdered in Charlotte. This past week or so, I think, or 2 weeks, the individual who murdered her was not put up or was deemed incompetent to go forward with trial. So what someone asked us to do, if we would just take a moment of silence for her, for number one, for how she was killed and murdered, and then number two, about seeking justice for that. So if we could just take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Next up is the chairman's report. We'll make this quick and easy. Election update. We're going to talk about June 9th primaries and what we've got there. June 9th voter outreach, turnout efforts, and then our membership renewals that are coming up, for 2026. To me, what we need to ask and get people to do, we don't need people to come to all the meetings, all the coffee politics, all the different things that we like to do. We need people voting in November for the Republicans. We need people voting in the primaries for the most conservative of the Republicans that are on the primary, and we need people coming out to reorg every other year. So that's really what we're trying to build in our precincts, and I think we can focus on getting people out for these June primaries. So this is the election update. We've got 57 days until June 9th. Well, early voting starts 14 days before that, so we got 43 days until there. Expect a runoff. And then realize that the Democrats are running a bunch of people in November. Everybody, I think almost everybody's got an opponent. Even Curtis has some Democratic opponents. Didn't get a Republican opponent, but they actually, I think they're running a couple Democrats against him. But if everybody's got in their one of the plastic bags with the newspaper, you'll find that this is all the candidates, the applicable for the state and federal, and then for a local here. Oops. Been working the whole night. All right. What you're seeing and what we gave out to everyone is a package. We got 10,000 of these papers. People are looking at what do I give? What do we sit there and economically give and hand out, lit drop in our precincts to get more people involved? Number one, to remind them that June 9th is the primary. I cannot tell you how many people will sit there and call me or text me on June 10th and say, why is the party not let me know that they're, I see Glenn shaking his head against the phone calls at the office, but what they say, why did you not let me know that there was a primary? I literally then look and see that we've actually texted that person, but that's okay. I mean, a lot of people don't live this 24/7 like the rest of us do. But what we want to do is we're going to try this as an experiment. We printed out a new paper that is just for this particular primary. We're going to do and we're letting people know about it. Let them know who's running, give them information on how to go to SC votes, all that type of stuff. There's a lot of information that we know, and sometimes we don't even know it ourselves. So, read that. It's only 8 pages, but read that. And then, and we want to get that passed out to your precincts. So what we're looking at doing is trying to distribute 10,000 of these to our 151 precincts. Even if we did 50 to 75 in each precinct, that's going to get us our 10,000. Once we get the 10,000, the next round that'll come out will be on May 22nd. We've got the next paper already ready and keyed up in production. We will have part of that, a voter guide of, here's the people running. Here's the reasons you may or may not want to vote for this person or that person. So we're going to have some discussions, expect a special meeting about that to discuss that. And sometimes we may recommend, 2 and or 3 candidates in a particular race. So if there's no particular consensus around one, but what we want to do is get you mapping your precincts. So we've got the precinct maps. We want you to figure out how to distribute that out to your precinct. And if you want to do 200, you want to pick up your neighboring precinct, that type of stuff. But we're going to have, and you'll see some emails coming out about that next. But we've got the paper, and we also did this flyer because some people wanted, if you see that June 9th mailer, you can literally just, if you're willing, and spend it, put a stamp on there and put addresses to the people in your precinct that you wanted to send that mailer to. We have some people that have some really big neighborhoods that they didn't want to walk all the way up to those houses and lit drop the distribution bags, so you can actually mail it too. So expect some more of that. The other thing is, think about this. We've got to fund the party somehow. We've done pretty well. I think I've upset about every elected official, calling them up, hitting them up for this baseball game this past week to sponsor that. Some have been very helpful in supporting us on that. But we want to push, the renewals. We want to push, the memberships and or the sustaining memberships, or even just one-time donations to the party. So that's what we're trying to do. You'll see some more information and some more emails coming out about that. We have no old business from the prior meetings. We've had no new business submitted. So Mr. Sheen, as our parliamentarian, said he expect not to have to do anything at this meeting. And I'm more than happy to accommodate. So does anybody have any new business or any just general questions, things that they would like to know, ask, point out? We like the new venue. We like the new venue too. They've been very nice to us. So we will send them a big thank you and a big bow around it and say thank you very much for helping us out with this. So, and Terry especially likes the new venue. They are at the office. We're assembling them. That's what we did this past Sunday. We had a bunch of volunteers come in and just pack, bags and stuff like that. What you can also do is if what we are recommending of that, write out a one pager introducing yourself and stick it in there too. And we'll help you out with what data that we do have. Well, we don't get the data from the party, but what we do have, we'll get out to you. So you can sit there and start mapping out who you want to come to precinct reorg, or who you want to remind people to sit there and tell all their neighbors. Who are the loud people that make posts out there that will get people to come out and vote? I mean, voter turnout in Greenville is about 15%. I mean, imagine if we can take it from 15%, 15 out of 100, and that's Republican and Democrat. If we can take it to 20%, and we've got some precincts where people have gone out and door knocked and done that, and they think they get it up a couple points. But if we can get that up with good, to vote for the right conservative, and if you want to, put your recommended list and some stuff in there on the second go around. But we want to introduce people to the party. We actually put pictures of Coffee and Politics, of the building and things like that, so they would realize it's not some secret sauce that's going on there. It's just a bunch of volunteers trying to make a better country, a better county, that type of thing. Yes, sir.
I heard that Donald Trump endorsed William Timmons, and I support David Atchley. Is there a way we could get some kind of polling data or perhaps to look at, so we could know how we could get Mr. Atchley over the finish line, and also how we could further help Mr.
I would certainly reach out to his campaign. And talk to him. A lot of people have different opinions about different candidates and stuff like that, and we're very supportive of that. Go out there, reach out. That's the other piece of this pie. We want to get people involved to sit there and door knock and get folks out there. But volunteer for a campaign, do that. I have not seen any polling on the 4th Congressional District in particular. I do know President Trump has endorsed William Timmons again. I will also say that people should know. What third candidate? Oh, yes. In the 4th Congressional District, there will be William Timmons. There will be a gentleman by David Atchley, and there's a gentleman by the name of Robert E. Lee. So I did text the congressman and tell him I was thinking about running too, and so we would have a full slate. I did put a big joke, right? So he would know I was kidding, but it is quite interesting. There is a third candidate, Robert E. Lee, that will be running, which would be quite interesting as people, how they vote on that. So, but no, get involved with campaigns, get involved and help. Say, I will help you in my particular precinct, or take 2 precincts is the best way to learn about your precinct. When we first did precinct reorg back in 2021, I think we've turned out 50 some odd people for our precinct reorganization. There was a gentleman down in, and this is one of the things I preach all the time. There's a gentleman down in Beaufort that turned out just over 100 for his precinct reorg this past year. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to call this guy and figure out how he did it. And what he did, he lives in a gated community down there in Beaufort. He's retired, and all that kind of good stuff, and he mapped out his precinct. What he did is he told me he could tell me who were Trump supporters, who were DeSantis supporters, and who were Nikki Haley supporters. He's got that kind of data down to the grindstone, and then he was able to invite a lot of people out to come to precinct reorg and get involved in it. Now, I will tell you, Beaufort, he is more of our like mind, being an America First person. Beaufort voted to bar him to come to the meetings anymore. So. Go figure. All he was doing, he was sending out emails, and apparently he was not supposed to send out emails. We let people send out emails if that's what they want to do, but that's kind of the game that's played down in Beaufort, and in some other counties there. But get involved in that. This is a package that you can go and deliver. We've offered the candidates, more than happy if they want to, do literature draw, add it into our packages, and that we can, do that. Nothing would be better than this bag showing up on somebody's door with the newspaper, an application to join the Greenville County Republican Party, 5 or 6 or 10, palm cards from different candidates. So it's all coming at one time. And then just, they can sit down and peruse the data and the information. That's why on page 2, we put down all the candidates that are running. That's what we want to be able to provide that information. We have people here from California that they ask me all the time. They're like, when is the state going to send out the mailer in the booklet that shows all the candidates and where they stand and what position they have? I'm like, we don't do that here. We don't do it at all. I mean, I don't know who it was that spoke earlier, said that is something they would like to see bifurcated, the state election commission bifurcated into 2, one being actually running the elections and one, part, I guess, focused on voter turnout or probably voter information to let people know who to vote for. Some people, I think there's two reasons why we don't have good voter turnout. And number one being is because all the nastiness in politics, nobody wants to be associated with it. So I think number one, I try to focus on, we got to stop it so we can get people more involved and they want to be participatory in the process. But then number 2, they don't know who to vote for. I used to not know who to vote for. I still may not. But what I used to do is I'd voted for the guy or the girl that had the most signs on the way to the polling location. I've now learned that's literally the opposite of what you should do. But I mean, if you actually had some materials that said, hey, these are the 3 people running for the 4th Congressional District. Here's the policy or position paper or positions that these people had. And then you could, here's a place to go look at it and find that. Maybe we have to create that ourselves. That might be that's your voter guide. Maybe we don't have to direct them by telling them who to vote for, but we can say, hey, these are their positions. You decide. I mean, what is the one thing that I always say? I sit here and say, I think the people of the state of South Carolina are good, hardworking, Christian, conservative folks. Our legislature is not. Our party is not. So, but if we get more people to come out and vote, I think just by nature, pure nature of it, it will get us better elected officials. We get better elected officials, we then get better legislation. We then get no tax on tips, for off of the state income tax on tips. I mean, that's what we've got to do. And I think with the ability to be able to print this paper, to be able to expand it, I've actually asked, and hopefully we'll get the feedback this week, what happens if we go to 12 pages? What happens if we go to 20,000? What do we do in that sense? We could maybe figure out a way to do it where we have, here's the paper for the 4th Congressional District, here's the one for the 3rd. Imagine when we get into back in the municipal elections next year, what if we did a paper just for Simpsonville or a paper just for Travelers Rest, just for the city of Greenville? Mike Kilgore went and, almost killed himself, knocking on doors and handing out stuff. What if we gave a full 8 pages worth of information about what his opponent has done to the city of Greenville over the past 44 years? That's what we got to do. Because I don't know how we're going to say, the city of Greenville. It's a tough nut to crack. It really is difficult, but we've got to find something to do. And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So we're trying to find new things, new ways to get out there. It's economic to put this information, 8 pages of it out there. It's actually almost as economic or more economic than just printing up a flyer with a little bit of information that's color. And it's certainly a lot cheaper than mailing it. So think about what you can do in your precinct. Get your team, a couple people that are willing to go. I know it's tough to knock on doors and talk to people. Maybe, maybe you enjoy that. You're looking for more conversation. Some people just want to drop literature off. Just drop it off on the door. Let them see you they'll see you on your ring cam, and maybe they'll grab you as you're walking the dog or the generals down the street and talk to you about, what's going on. We had one gentleman, he had an emergency come up in Charlotte or tonight, couldn't come, but he had put a Paul Dan sign in his yard. A neighbor came over and wanted to talk to him about it. He was 95 years old and he thought he knew everything about politics. And he wanted to say, why do you like, Paul Dance over a Mark Lynch or a Lindsey Graham? So they had the conversation. We have to have more conversations about candidates and to be able to get people comfortable so they feel comfortable about voting. And then I'm looking at Carrie in the background here, think about what we can do on our issue advocacy and what Frank Gunther and those guys can do. What can we do on pro-life and explain the different issues and different concerns we have on bills? Think about how we can turn this into more information. I mean, we can put it on the web all day long. We can live stream stuff. I mean, we're getting more and more hits all over the place. It's fantastic. And we're getting a lot more information. I went to my 40th high school reunion the other day. I'm like, it was like crazy. And I got, classmates from high school, I think, never know anything about what I'm doing. Say, oh, I see you on that podcast. I watch it all the time. I mean, we had a guy come in and volunteer the other day that said he was watching. He's like, I just moved here. Well, he moved here about a year and a half ago. He's like, I was trying to find news, political news, and I found your thing. And, you guys talk about everything, local, state, federal. We talk about all kinds of stuff, but more local. He's like, so he's now come up to the headquarters and he's volunteering and doing some stuff. So it's fantastic. That's what we need. We need to get more people involved, and that's what we're struggling to do. And it is a sacrifice. And that's why I appreciate what Paul Dans is doing. I talk about with candidates all the time. I ask, I kind of, you got 3 or 4 candidates in a race. They're good. Some of them are good, but the ones you like and they're good. And then you're sitting there going, well, not everybody can win, or it's going to be an impossible race because Lindsey Graham's got $40 million and this guy's got $5 million. This guy's got, $1 million. What are you going to do? Stick around, help us with this fight, continue with the fight. Paul Dans is committed to do that. I find that admirable. How many candidates have we gone out and door knocked and done things for, and then they just disappear? They don't win and they're gone. I mean, we can't quit until we win this fight, and the fight continues. And, read our founding fathers. I mean, liberty and freedom is something you have to fight for constantly. And that's that's the example we're trying to put out across the country and what we're trying to do otherwise. So I know everybody wants to go home. We got lots of other things to do. And if there's no new business, what is my favorite motion? A motion to adjourn. What? The basket is Mary will chokehold you as your way out if you miss the basket. Thank you for everybody's support. Thank you for the volunteering. Let's just officially get it for the secretary. Name and precinct. Your motion. Can we get a final second from Deborah from Saluda Precinct? Deborah is moving to Anderson. So she's going out on a highlight, seconding our motion to adjourn. So thank you all. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we're out. Thank you all very much. Oh, and let me give a special thanks to Andrew Molinax for coming and doing the filming for us.